Let's get started, I guess. All
Yeah,
right.
I think we can start.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. We all take immense pleasure in welcoming you aboard to the GSoC webinar for beginners, brought to you by IEEE BU. As you all know, IEEE is a world organization that focuses on integrating ideas and imparting expertise. Its goal is to advance technology for the benefit of humankind. I'm Pratyush Chauhan, and with me I have.
Prakhar, and we are your hosts for this evening. So, some of you must be wondering what GSoC is. Let me brief you a bit about it. The GSoC stands for the Google Summer of Code. It is an international annual program in which Google awards stipends contributors who successfully complete a free and open source software coding project during the summer. It gives participants a wonderful opportunity to build new skills as well as test their existing skills. From 2022, the program is open to anyone aged 18 and above, instead of only CSE students and recent graduates.
To tell us more about GSoC, today we have our esteemed guest and Bennett alumnus, Mr. Nikhil Ramakrishnan, who happens to be a software development engineer at Commvault. And he cracked GSoC not only once, but twice.
He has also received Chancellor's Gold Medal for academic performance and is also the founder of Bennett Open Source Society. So now over to you, Nikhil Bhaiya.
Hi everyone, happy to be here. Hi Pratyush, hi Prakhar. Thanks for that introduction. That covered like a lot of my work. Thank you. So I will be actually mainly talking about, more than the program rules itself, which you can always see on the website. I'm going to talk about how you can approach GSoC, how you can select projects that you want to do or you're interested in, and how you can prepare a proposal which increases your chances of getting selected for a GSoC project. Shall I get started then?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. Okay. So before we start, this is going to be a very interactive kind of a discussion. So I'm not here to like give you a lecture about GSoC. That's not what I'm here to do. We're going to discuss, and I'm going to tell you some basics. We can just skip over all the eligibility stuff that you already read out. But then, if there is something you want to talk about, you think something you want to know more about, just just unmute yourself and speak up, right? So before we get in, can we like know more about the audience? So does anyone here contribute to open source, know about open source, heard of it, uses open source software, anything? Feel free to unmute yourself and just say like, yes, I have used
If,
open
yeah,
source.
if
Or
someone has to say something, you can definitely unmute yourself and you may also raise your hands. Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple of people responding in the chat box.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, fixing typos is not a bad thing. It's a very good place to start off, because then you also learn how the process of making changes in open source goes. So yeah, so that's a good start. um, yes, you know about it, you know about open source, and I'm pretty sure all of us have used, knowingly or unknowingly, used open source software in the last week even, you know. So yeah, so let's get into it. um, Open source is when your software, the code of the software, which is the source code by which is used to build the actual software, is licensed under it's licensed such that you are able to go and look at the source code, you're able to get a copy of it, you're able to build it, and you're able to contribute to it. That is how open source is broadly defined. um, and if you think about it, many of the software that runs the computer or the technology world today is based on open source technologies. So be it Linux, Android, and then there's hundreds of thousands of libraries that that are used on top of Linux, Android, and other open source platforms that make up what you see on your computer screen today, right? Even Microsoft Teams probably uses a lot of open source libraries to facilitate things like video streaming, chat, and other. So you can always go and look at the open source licenses. So that's a thing on every software. You'll be able to see what other softwares the proprietary software, which is Teams, has used in it to make it like the success it is today, right? I mean, even if you're not into open source, you should know that you actually are a user of some kind of open source software directly or indirectly, right? So let's come to what Google Summer of Code is from there. So GSoC is basically it's an international program hosted by Google, where earlier students now like Prakhar said, it's open to everyone, where people from all around the world, they will participate in a 2 to 3 month program where they are connected to open source organizations that build all the software that that runs in the background that you use uh, you know um on a daily basis as well. So yeah, so like there is a, I think around 1200 students. We'll get to the stats, but some students who participate every year who are connected with organizations, and they do a specific project for that organization for the duration of those 2 to 3 months. What Google does here is it facilitates this connection between organizations and students. So every student who gets accepted into the program is connected with an organization, and from there, you can start directly working with the organization. And Google also, very importantly, pays stipends to the students or the participants, which helps them, especially for students who are in college. It helps you like earn something out of it. So it acts as a summer internship, even though Google claims it is not a summer internship, but then you still earn out of it, which is a very good thing, which you can always invest in your future, and or of course you can buy whatever you like out of it. So that's what Google Summer of Code is all about. It's Google conducting a program, connecting participants to open source organizations, which gives you a two-sided benefit, where the student is able to learn a lot of things, is also able to earn a stipend out of it, and the organization also gets contributions and new contributors for their project, which is very important, and I'll get to that later. So that's because just these 2 to 3 months are not when you would ideally contribute to an organization. It should go on for longer if actually you actually contributed something meaningful there. So yeah, the stats. Google Summer of Code has been running since 2005. 18,000 plus participants, 17,000 mentors, so many countries. There's been 746 open source organizations, and 39 million lines of code have been produced. So not a. I mean, it looks impressive, but I mean it's not a big deal when you look at the other stats, where like there's around 18,000 students participating over the course of like 15 years, right? Yeah, so this year, in addition to students, I mean, other people who are not students being allowed to participate, Google has also introduced two different kinds of projects. So you have a medium-sized project and a large project. The medium projects will be approximately 175 hours, and the large projects are 350. So that's just a round figure to let you know about how much you have to work. So it's going to be double if you're doing the large project, and the standard coding period is 12 weeks for the medium one, and it can be extended up to a maximum of 22 weeks, with approval based on the size of your project and how far you have reached on your project timeline. Yeah, so very important. Let's actually go through what the goals of the program are before we talk about how you can get into the program. So it's basically to introduce contributors to the open source software development scenario, right? So tomorrow there is a very less chance that any of us is going to be working full time on an open source organization, because those are not jobs. Those are contributions that you do to a software that is freely available for anyone to download and use, right? So even though those contributions aren't, you cannot charge anyone for them as such, after GSoC is over especially, but those contributions go a very long way in shaping how the computer science industry goes forward and how technology moves ahead as a whole. And not just that, you have a very big benefit of if you are a contributor to a large or a well-known open source project, that gives a very big boost to your resume as well. So a lot of companies, if you look at them, they just hire like famous open source developers you would have heard of. They just hire them without looking much into it, and then they give 50% of their paid time for working on that open source project to that employee. So there are a lot of perks of doing this, especially if you work on a very big project. But then of course we have to start small and then build your way up, especially if you actually get gain that kind of interest into open source programming. Eligibility, most of it has already been covered. You just have to be over 18. I think have been accepted into no more than one previous GSoC. I don't know if it is two, but I feel it might be two. But then just you can just check. So I mean, I'm guessing most of you here have not participated in GSoC, so this doesn't really matter. You must be, so this is not important for us. And then you must be a new contributor to the open source community. We can talk more about this later. I have a slide discussing this new kind of restriction that you have. Yeah, so let's talk about how GSoC works. It's going to be the first step of Google Summer of Code officially is going to be when open source projects, or we call them orgs or organizations, they apply to be mentor organizations. So these are the organizations you as students are going to be applying to with a proposal for making a project or improving a project based on whatever is required by them. And then Google will choose these organizations to participate. There might be, because organizations also have to submit a convincing proposal. It's not just the students who have to convince the orgs. The orgs have to convince Google that what they're doing is important enough to be part of Google Summer of Code, and it is important enough for Google to be paying out money to students all over the world to be doing this. So Google will choose few organizations. Last year it was 199. And then it'll open up for contributors, which was earlier students, to submit proposals to mentor organizations directly. So this is where Google is not involved in the process. You will choose the organization, you will submit your own proposal to the organization, and the organizations will select proposals that they feel are good enough to be working for, to be going ahead with working in GSoC. And then mentor organization, like that, like I said, they will be choosing contributors. The contributors are paired with a mentor. This is very important. Every contributor will get at least one mentor for their project, who will be their go-to person for any questions related to the project, related to the program, or related to anything that is to do with the software you're contributing to. And then of course the coding begins, where based on your medium size or large size, you're going to be contributing to the code base of the organization that you were selected in. So any questions up to here? Just like basic stuff. What is GSoC? Why it is important? What are the advantages? We'll get to that later. But like, do you guys have like any questions as to?
Yeah, I think there's one question in the chat box, and
Yeah.
they're asking, how much does Google spend on GSoC?
That
I
is a
don't
good
think
question.
that's possible. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, Google is not getting anything out of spending on GSoC, but they still do it as an initiative to open source, because big companies like Google and Microsoft themselves use a lot of open source in their software. So this is a way for them to give back. And if you calculate, I don't think the costs are going to go over $1 or $2 million, which is not a big amount for Google. So that aside,
Another question we've got is asking, and there's Jayesh, and he's asking, would you get paid for 12 weeks or 22 weeks?
We'll get to the stipend part later. So I think, I mean, as far as because a lot of things about the 22 and 12 weeks is not clear as of now. But if you go to the stipend page, you'll see that the listed stipends are from the last year for the shorter projects, which is $1,500 if you're an Indian resident. But I'm not sure if Google will change that to the $3,000 usual if you end up doing the 22-week project. So that is something Google is yet to decide or yet to announce. But yeah, I mean, know that it's going to be at least $1,500 if you do the medium-sized project. Yeah, how many organizations can I apply? That is something I'll get to. Then yeah, okay. This is also something we can get to. Like, if you can suggest your own idea, yes, you can. You can also pick an idea suggested by the organization. But then when we get to the details, I will talk more about that. Yeah, so prerequisites is not much. You just have to have an interest in learning and working with open source software. I guess that is why at least most of you are here on this call. So that is done. You need a functioning computer, of course. You will be coding for those 12 weeks, and some programming experience is good. If not, you can still start learning. GSoC is quite a while away. It's not too late to start learning even Python, because there are hundreds of projects that use Python. There are hundreds of projects that use even C++ if you're into that, right? So it's not too late to start learning, but then you should have that interest to spend that amount of time on working on something, on learning something. So how the application works is you have to submit a proposal for a project that you wish to work on, which it could be your own suggested project. But then of course, if it is your own suggested project, I would suggest you go back and talk to the potential mentors and ask them if it is an okay thing to do. Otherwise, your proposal should not go waste. You didn't spend like 2 or 3 weeks writing that proposal just for them to say that this is not an idea we want to pursue. So if it is a new idea, I would always suggest to thoroughly discuss it with the organization, the community of the organization, so that they're okay with it. And then we'll talk about how the proposals can be reviewed at a later slide. Yeah. So the application process is simple. You submit a proposal, the organization selects proposals that it likes, and then assigns mentors to each participants who will be your contact person, like I said before. Now, this is an important distinction I want to make regarding GSoC. Especially in India, a lot of people talk about GSoC, like it's an exam, like it's JEE. I understand you guys are from a very, I mean, like all of us are from a very competitive background of 11th and 12th, where we prepare extensively for JEE, and then only for on the exam day you got an exception organic chemistry question which you couldn't complete, and your rank goes down. So it's not at all like that. GSoC is not an exam or a competitive thing that you need to crack. As long as you're interested in open source, apply for GSoC. Even the application process will give you enough learning for you to keep, have an edge when you apply for your jobs or your further studies. So it's not a competition. Getting selected is important, but it is a very small part of your program. So if you think getting selected and then you are done, so a lot of people in engineering colleges do this. I'm done. I don't really need to do anything. That might be okay for some, but then you need to spend your summer break on your laptop or your computer. Remember that. Working on technologies that are potentially new to you, programming languages that are new to you, and even operating systems that might be new to you, right? And you need to pass 2 evaluations separately in order to receive your stipend. So you're not going to just get the money when the moment you get selected. You have to put in work. You have to earn that stipend, and the mentors and the organization will be the ones who decide whether you earned your stipend or not. So that's where you need genuine interest, and then you need to be able to communicate, and you need the technical knowledge or be willing to learn that technical knowledge if you get selected for GSoC. So make sure you consider all these before you spend your time researching and looking at. Of course, I would still suggest, if you still feel that you're not interested, just take a look at the archive, see what projects have been there in the last few years. If after that you think this is not for you, then of course, then you did a good job, figuring out that this is not something you want to do. Then you can apply for other internships or do your own thing during summer. It's not necessary that you really have to do anything, at least in the first few years of your college, right? Let's come to the advantages though. It's an amazing learning experience, hands down. You do it one year, 2 year, it's not the same thing. I'm telling you, even in the second year I learned a lot, many things, compared to the first year as well, because there are different things to learn and different, you know different kind of aspects to it. So you will not just your technical knowledge is obviously going to be enhanced. You're also going to be learning a lot of soft skills. you know it's going to be communicating with people across different time zones, making sure you have meetings. If you set up meetings, you'll have to find the right time. You'll have to talk. The mentor or the admin might not have enough time, right? So you might have to condense all of your content or whatever you want to talk about, or your questions into a 15-20 minute time. So all these skills are very important, especially after college, in both corporate and in higher studies. So so this is a very good opportunity for all of you to be able to learn these kind of skills sitting at home, and also while earning a stipend while doing that, right? And there is no denying that it is a super boost for your resume, because the moment people see that you've contributed to a reputed organization, and any organization in GSoC is reputed because it's open source, everybody knows, and Google has selected those organizations. Everybody knows that what you've done is going to be good. So as long as you've actually worked on your project, you add that to your resume, everyone is going to just look at it and your resume is going to stand out. So I guarantee you, at the least, you're going to be selected. Your resume is going to move to the next rounds in many more cases than it would for a friend who has not done GSoC. I'm not saying that the friend should have done GSoC. They might have something else in their resume that stands out, but GSoC is a sure shot way for you to stand out in a bunch of resumes, especially if you're applying outside India, because then the company has to have a lot of other considerations, like they have to sponsor your visa and things. So if your resume stands out more, they will be more inclined to support you to get that position, if you of course if you clear their interview and the rest of the rounds. And the stipend is obviously a bonus. We already discussed a lot about it. You could do anything with it. You could invest, you could buy a new laptop, PS5, whatever. But that's a few advantages of many other things, and these are I feel the most important ones of participating in GSoC. But then again, like I said in the previous slide, you just can't crack it and assume you're done. You have to actually put in work. Yeah. So let's now move on to how, now that you've decided that you want to participate in GSoC, let's see how you can decide on what org and what project you should apply for. So there is this website. I think a mail was also sent out with this link earlier. You can go to this archive. You look at the list of orgs for the last year, the year before that, and a few before that. Just open every organization that sounds interesting to you, even remotely. If you think I have heard of this, I might, I think this might be the thing for me, or even if you're like, okay, the name sounds cool or the logo looks cool, just open it up. There is always a link called project ideas in every one of those organization pages. That will take you to a project page, which will either have ideas for the last year, or they might already start putting ideas for the current, for 2022 GSoC. If that is the case, amazing, because you now can have a list of things that you are able to try out. I mean, try submitting a proposal for. If not, try looking for ideas that were not picked last year. Those ideas are usually carried forward to the next year. So you can always, so we'll talk about how you can write, you can use chat, or you can write to the mailing list to talk to the organizations, and we'll talk about how you introduce yourself to those organizations. There is a lot of, seriously, there is a lot of people who are coming in and they're like, hi, I want to participate in GSoC. Tell me what to do. This is not the way you're going to be selected, or this is not the way you're going to get attention. So we're going to talk about that. But for now, let's say you look at the ideas for from the archive. You decide on a few organizations. Whatever interests you, make a list out of it. Along with that, also write why you thought that was interesting. So because when you're looking at hundreds of organizations on a list, you will tend to forget when you come back 2 days later as to why you thought that organization was interesting. So especially if you have a project idea that you feel is a good fit for you, just write down the project idea and say, okay, this is the technology I'm working on, or I already know Python, or I'm a Java expert, and I feel I will fit in very well with this project. So that's what you do. You make a list, right? And then come back, read about the organization. If there are any project ideas, read about that. If the project already exists on places like GitLab, GitHub, any open source, of course, it has to be from somewhere public. Try to clone it, build it, run it, explore, see if you can find bugs, see if you can, just run it normally as a normal user would. Now go back to the idea, read it again, see if this is something you are willing to do. Because you'll be working on this for 2 or more months, right? Make sure you check the requirements. Some of these requirements that the organizations will list are firm. So for example, there are some open source um, software for running space simulations. They will require you to know some basic mathematics, right? You need to know vector mathematics, some calculus. If you think that is your jam, then go ahead and do it, because I can tell you from the first thing that when someone lists calculus, the number of applicants are going to go down drastically. So that is an advantage. If you're good at calculus and you like programming mathematics, that will be a great project for you. And similarly, we also have many other organizations that, Blender, for example. Blender is a very important GSoC participant. So if you are into 3D rendering, if you have been using Blender, if you have done animations and all, this might give you a different perspective, right? So actually working on Blender behind the scenes, programming things that users are going to use for their renders, that's going to be amazing. But it's going to be in C++ or Python, right? So you need to make sure that you look at the requirements. Even if you are not, you think you're not proficient enough in something like C++ or Python right now, look at the code base, try to make changes, try to run it. And I can tell you for sure that in 50 to 60% of the cases, you will get comfortable with the code base within like a month or two. And you can start that by contributing, looking at the issues page, contributing to basic bug fixes. You can think about it that way, right? So you just pick up a easy bug. So a lot of GSoC organizations, by the way, have a tag in their issues called first time issue. So that first time issue tag is usually used for people who are starting to contribute to their organization, and you can use that tag to search, filter issues that you can use to jump into contributing to that organization. So that is that. I'll talk about that in more detail. But then so you can do all this to make your list, and then you keep reordering your list based on what you found out, right? If you ran the software and you feel this is not something I'm interested in at all, just remove it off your list, right? You don't really need to wait, like keep it around and clutter your list. So remove it. And it is possible that something that was on the bottom interested you much more than everything else, so you can move it to the top. So this list will actually go a long way in helping you finally decide what you're going to submit a proposal for, because there are limitations when you submit a proposal, and there are also limitations as a person. You cannot focus on too many things, right? And that is a very important aspect I will talk about in the next few slides. So start at the top, pick an organization, get the code, try to solve an issue, get a first time issue, try, do all that. Now it's time for contacting the organization mailing list or chat. So what you're going to do is you're going to introduce yourself, but just it's not just going to be an introduce message like I have mentioned here. It's not going to be, hi, I want to participate in GSoC, what should I do? That's not a question anyone likes to answer, because GSoC is a program that has been running for many years, and organizations do not really pay attention to people who are going to send out messages like these. You have to put in your own research. You have to find out more about the project. You have to find out if there is any existing or related work that has already gone in on any other open source project to implement the same kind of changes or projects that they're asking you to implement, and try to ask questions. So you need to ask questions in your first email. So you introduce yourself and like, okay, so I looked at this project idea, I liked it. Can you tell me, not just can you tell me more about it? Do you like, if for example, if you say, if there is a line in the project idea that says this has to be implemented on Linux, so you could maybe ask, does it have, does it have to be cross-platform? Do you think if I'm able to support it on Windows because I'm a Windows developer, do you think that will be useful for the community? So they might answer back like, this is a Linux only software, so it doesn't really matter. So you're like, okay, great. But then you ask the question, you started a conversation, and that's how you get it rolling, right? So you keep a dialogue in there, and then eventually you might start contributing to issues, and people in the orgs start getting to know you. And when you actually apply for GSoC, you have that, you actually have a bias for the organization admins and mentors. They know you already. They will prefer to pick you over someone who has submitted a proposal without talking to them at all, because they know you are capable of working on their project and you have asked valid questions, and that will allow you to excel on whatever project you take up during GSoC. Yeah. So I wanted to talk before I talk about this. Let me see if there are any important questions, or if you want to ask anything, just unmute yourself.
I think we have a few questions in the chat box. Saeed is asking, mind sharing what project you worked on?
Okay, I will do that. So once we get to the end of this instructional kind of thing, I just wanted, so this is my experience, right? You could follow a different approach. I just wanted to give you like a good way to, or an well accepted way to prepare for GSoC without thinking of it as a competition, because this is all you. This is going to be your effort. It's not like if this guy does better than me. There's no one who's going to do better than you. It's your proposal, your communication, and how you contribute to an organization. I will show you what I have worked on like towards the end of the presentation. So let me keep that as a reminder. There's another question, I guess.
Yeah.
Do I need to learn the dev things like web dev, Android, or can I contribute with my knowledge? Depends. So if there is a project that the requirements are CPP and Python, that should be sufficient. What you already know should be sufficient, and you should try to start contributing before you actually contact them or submit a proposal, so you can get an idea of how the whole project is structured. But there might be, so a lot of projects are not just Python or just CPP. Most projects are going to be a mix of a lot of things, right? So it could be writing a Python backend, where you have Flask or similar APIs, and writing a small front end, that acts as a demo for your APIs. So you don't really need to learn web dev for writing a demo front end, but you might need to learn web dev for a project that is focused on front end, right? So you might, if there is a project that asks you to make a dashboard for like users coming in, and they want to see some data coming in from somewhere, coming in from space, coming in from some machine, then you might need front end knowledge, right? Because you need to build charts, you need to be able to show tables, you need to be able to update that data live. That will require web dev. So again, it all depends on the kind of project you're selecting. If you think you are only comfortable with working on projects that come in your sphere of knowledge, well and good, find those projects, apply for them. But if you want to like expand yourself a little, if you want to expand your knowledge a little, where you say, okay, I know enough Python, I just for some reason I want to learn CPP, right? I want to know what those pointers are. So you're going to go and apply for a CPP project, start learning CPP, and then start contributing to their CPP code base. So it all depends on you. Just take a look at the projects, see what works. If you find a project within your knowledge, great. Otherwise, try to learn more. Okay. Do we have anything else?
Yeah, there's a few more questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Saeed is asking, a proposal as in a push request to the project?
No, this is not going to be a a pull request or a merge request to the project. A proposal is a document that you have to write in a specific format where you discuss what you're going to do in the project, what the aim of the project is. You have to give a rough timeline for the project, and you have to also give a list of things that you think you're going to achieve every week during the GSoC period, because that is what GSoC is about. You need to work every day for those 12 weeks. I mean, of course, minus weekends, but you need to work every day and you need to give out goals. So week 0 to 2, I'm going to do this, and then 2 to 4, I'm going to do this. So it's going to be like a formal document. We'll get to that. I'll also show you one of my proposals so you can get an idea of how uh, a proposal looks like. Yeah, so that's that.
We have one more question from Chancellor.
Can you read it out?
The question. What if I implement the simplest method for LPP, which has been acknowledged as one of the top 3 algorithms of the 21st century? GSoC is still quite far away, so I think I might be able to work this out in one way or another. By the end of the first.
Okay. I'll stop you right there. Do you mean that this project is something that you came up with? Like that's what I feel. If that is the case, you cannot do that unless you find an organization that is ready to accept this project, right? So if there is an organization, so I'm not sure what this algorithm is. Forgive me, but uh, if there is an organization that feels this algorithm is useful for their software, then you might get a chance to implement it. But GSoC is not a place where you can go and present your own projects. It has to be a project agreed upon by you, an organization, and you have to be selected based on the proposal you submit on the agreed project. So don't think of it as don't think of it as a semester project in college, right? It's not going to be something you decide and then you submit a proposal for that. It's going to be an organization that puts out a list of projects, list of potential projects, or you suggesting improvements to their existing process or projects or software, and then them accepting that for you to be able to do that. So it's not just implement it and submit it. Yeah.
Right. Do you want to take more questions or do we continue with the presentation?
Okay, let me continue for a little. I think many of these questions will be answered as we talk about how you make the proposal and all.
Right.
Yeah, so if you remember, we saw a eligibility criteria that said you need to be a new contributor to an org when you're applying for GSoC. That is slightly misleading because the eligibility criteria reads you cannot submit proposals to organizations that you have already made non-trivial contributions to outside of GSoC. This is the GSoC default rule, right? That means if you have made substantial contributions to an organization, so that means if you've already been working, if you've already been contributing to an organization in a major way before GSoC, it doesn't make sense for Google to pay you to do that, right? Because you're already doing it, you're basically exploiting Google to make you pay for something you're already doing. So that is the reason they have added this rule. But then if you actually go and look at organizations GSoC rules, many organizations require you to have past contributions before applying with a proposal, right? That means you need to have submitted pull requests or merge requests, however trivial it may be, that they will define it. So they might say you need 2 pull requests that at least do these things to be able to be eligible for applying to GSoC in this organization. So just look at what the org says. If they don't say anything, don't worry, you can still contribute like trivial bug fixes as you start out to fix things. They also, like I told you before, they also have a label called first time issue, right? So that will help you to like dive in and start working with small fixes and small changes to the organization or the project, right? So just don't worry too much about this. Look at the organization's rules, and if there are none, then feel free to like contribute trivial fixes that are not like too large, or you just didn't implement a new feature or a new subsystem altogether. So that should be okay. Yeah, so coming to writing the proposal now. So this should clear a lot of doubts on what the proposal is. The proposal is different from contributing to the project itself. The proposal is a formalized document that is required by Google for you to submit to the organization, using which, based on which the organization is going to decide whether
Right, whether
you are eligible to contribute, or you're eligible to join Google Summer of Code, right? First and the most important thing is start early. You should not, I don't think you should wait for Google to announce Google Summer of Code 2022 or open up the registrations for mentors or students. Especially if you wait till student registrations are open, that will be quite late, because then you'll have to cram in all your work in 10 to 15 days, which is not recommended, because then you won't get time to get your proposal reviewed from the mentors, which is a very important part of submitting a proposal. If you get the right mentor reviews, you almost have a guarantee of being selected, because the mentor is showing enough interest in your proposal. They are also invested in getting you selected, because they feel that you're a good match for the project. Again, I think there was one question that asked, can you submit proposals for multiple projects? You can. I think you can submit for a maximum of 3 projects in a year, but I would suggest you not to do that, because if you do that, you need to be able to spend more time contributing individually to each organization, and you need to spend more time communicating with each organization, which is going to be very hectic, right? So if you're going to be missing out on mails, you're going to be missing out on chats, you might miss out the opportunity to contribute something bigger, which might have guaranteed you an acceptance in GSoC. So I would suggest one, but at max two. This is for submitting proposals. While you're in the looking around phase, you can contact as many orgs as you want with meaningful questions and all. But when you're actually deciding to submit a proposal, it's going to be one, maximum two, if you are adventurous enough, and if you're ready to take that workload on yourself. But make sure you don't compromise on the proposal quality, because the proposal is going to be the most important document, like I said, which they're going to be using to select you as a student for GSoC. You need to carefully read the required proposal format. Many orgs have their own proposal format. You can check them on their own website, the organization website. If they do not have a format, you can just follow the suggested format in the contributor guide. So in any case, getting selected, not selected, interested, not interested, go ahead and read the GSoC contributor guide, like first page to last page. It's going to give you a lot of information, a lot of inspiration, and a lot of knowledge on what you're supposed to do before the program, during the program, and after your selections are done, and when you start contributing to GSoC, right? Now when you're ready, you've decided on the one organization you're going to write your proposal for. So that's usually going to be the top of your list if you were maintaining that list and updating it. You write a draft proposal on Google Doc. So why I say Google Doc is because you can share it, and it allows for people to write reviews on the Google Doc itself, which you can directly see on the selected text, next to the selected text. So this will have mentors and peers review your proposal. If the mentors agree, which most mentors do agree, you can share your draft proposals link with them, and they are going to go through it and review it. This is the best kind of feedback you can get from anyone, because the mentors are the one who are going to be choosing you based on your proposal. So if you get feedback from them, they're going to let you know what their expectations are. So they might tell you, they might give you small changes, like add a diagram here, or why do you think you're going to be able to achieve this. But they might also give you big suggestions, like add a section about your the technical details of this project. So that is a very important thing, and that could be a deciding factor between you getting selected and not. And then so this is important, mentor feedback. So to be able to get this, you need to start early, because if you start during the registrations, that's going to be an issue, because hundreds of students, as potentially hundreds, because for big organizations like Mozilla, you'll get hundreds of people submitting a proposal. So at that point, mentors are not going to have time to review anything, because hundreds of students are asking them for reviews. So they'll just select 4 or 5, and then maybe put some reviews which they feel is okay, because they're not going to have any time to do that. So the earlier you start, the better reviews you get from mentors, and the better the chance for you to get selected, because you're also going to be parallelly contributing to the projects. And when you're ready, this is just a required formality from Google. Before the last date, take the Google Doc, create a PDF out of it, upload it, and you're done. If your mentor already has reviewed your document multiple times, they really don't need to think twice, because you just put the same thing they've already read on the website, and if you're selected, you're selected. So that's where the advantage comes in if you start early. There is a question that says, can we make a team for a project? No, you cannot have a team. There's only individual contributors allowed for participating in GSoC. Yes, mentor is a person who is from the org. So they could also be a contributor, because open source orgs, a lot of them don't have a set hierarchy, except big organizations like Mozilla. They have a hierarchy saying this is a lead contributor, this is the maintainer for this version. But a lot of open source projects do not have such a hierarchy, but usually the people who are major contributors to the project, they act as mentors. And even previous GSoC students who actually became part of the community act as mentors for the next years. So yes, mentors, they will be knowledgeable about the project, and you can ask them any questions you have. If they do not know, they're going to be able to redirect you to the person who knows. That's what a mentor is for, right? Um, how can we contact mentors? You go to the GSoC archive, you look at organizations, you look at their project ideas, you look at the project list. They also list the potential mentors for every project idea. So instead of, do not, by the way, do not directly contact the mentor. If you, even if you find their email, don't directly email them. It's not considered good practice, because you're directly like mailing someone, bombarding them with questions. Instead, find a common place. All organizations will have a chat, a gitter, or a mailing list, which where you can mail to, where all emails you send will be sent to everyone who is part of the community. So that way, if you ask a specific question about a specific project, the mentor is the one who might end up replying to you, and then you can keep that conversation going on. So you don't have to contact them individually. If that is something the org allows, you can go ahead and do that. But then don't make the first contact individual, because then they're going to be like, just contact the org. That's what most people will say. Even if they're the one who are going to reply, just don't contact them individually. So that's one thing. Um, and then let's see if we have something else. Yeah.
Okay, we had a question. Saeed asked earlier that are there any interviews involved in GSoC?
Usually not. There are, I haven't heard of people, at least in my peer group, who got into GSoC doing an interview. But if you think about it, the interview is going to be the kind of communication you do with the org before you submit your proposal. That is what matters, because the kind of questions you ask, the kind of suggestions you make, the kind of contributions. So this contribution thing is important for some orgs, not important for some. But then the kind of contributions you make definitely affects the mentality of the people who are going to look at your proposal. If they know you've contributed before, they can be confident that you can contribute in the future. So don't, whatever you do, don't submit a proposal for an org that you literally had no contact with. They're just not going to look at your proposal unless there's literally no other proposals lying around for them to look at. Don't do this, because contacting them, even if you don't contribute, that's okay. Make sure you contact, ask meaningful questions, and let them know that you are a candidate who will be submitting a proposal for GSoC 2022. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there's one more. I feel like a second year student would be more skilled at this, or year does not matter. He's basically asking if year matters or not.
The year does not matter, because the only difference between a second year student and a first year student in CSE is that a second year student had another course on data structures, right? Or operating systems, for example. And that's not going to change the fact that you could have gone and learned that yourself in the time you have right now, from now to the time GSoC starts. So don't think of it like, don't, if you feel the opportunity is right in front of you, don't wait for the next year, right? Because if you get a GSoC project in on your first year, you can actually start applying for internships starting your second summer. And you will get internships because you have GSoC already as an experience on your resume. I'm not talking about the stipend here, but starting the second year, if you are able to do internships, there is a high chance that you will get a job there. You'll also get your third year and fourth year internships there as well if you do good there as well. But that gives you a lot of free time as well to think about what you want to do, because if you're doing if you're doing a GSoC project in your first summer itself, you get second and third summers to experiment with what kind of a company you want to be in, or you could also end up deciding that you want to go for higher education if that was not your idea earlier. So don't keep here as a bar to whether I will be able to do it. Look at the projects. There are projects that are listed for beginners, intermediate, advanced. I think you can do GSoC 2 times. So if you feel the experience you got was good enough for you to do it again, then I would suggest you go ahead and do it the second year as well. But doing it in the first year will be a great achievement, I would say, because then you will be able to bag internships in the second year if if you just slightly work towards that for applying. I mean, by applying to internships, and don't limit yourself to only applying to internships in India, because a lot of internships in Europe and US are looking for like people in the second year, and not a lot of people do apply for those. So they will be like glad to accept you if they'll if your profile fits what they're looking for. So let me continue, like finish up what slide or whatever slides I have left, and then we can like take more questions. Yeah, so now that you've submitted your proposal, you're just going to wait for an excruciating 3 weeks, where the organizations and mentors are going to decide whether your proposal is going to be selected, whether your project is going to go ahead or not. If you are selected, you will get an email from Google. Of course, you should take a moment or a day to congratulate yourself for all the hard work you've put in. And then of course, the community bonding period starts the moment you get your email that you're selected. You enjoy that period, you talk to everyone in the org, get to know each other, set up the software, set up your development environment, prepare for whatever is coming for the next 3-4 weeks, and then you start working on your project. And if you have contributed already, this part should not be hard for you. It's just like contributing more to the project, only that you're going to be doing it on a more like regular basis for the next 2 months. If you didn't get through, now what? This is where I also suggest people in the first year to apply. Even if you don't get selected, you still have 3 more years of your college where you can spend your summer, applying for GSoC, and, get selected and working on even better projects that are, more aligned towards your interests in the future. If you don't get selected, it's not the end. You learned so much about open source software. Maybe you did not know how to run Git. You never opened a command prompt in your life. You never opened a terminal in your life. You were scared of typing Git, and then because all this stuff is happening, it's outputting these many things. You need to type git commit. What should I do? You learned all of that. You also learned how to research, ask the right questions, report bugs, talk to people who are who are building that software, and get your questions answered, right? And you also of course learned how to write a technical proposal document. Although that might be the reason you didn't get selected, maybe there were some shortcomings, but that is where you ask for feedback, right? Just write a simple mail to the mentors like, thank you for considering me, considering my proposal. If you have time, could you please give me some feedback as to how I can improve my proposal, right? Other than the fact that it's going to increase your credibility by a lot in that organization, if you apply again next year, you're also going to get constructive feedback on things that you should do and not do when you submit your proposal the next time. This is where I say don't submit too many proposals, because if you focus on one, you can focus on taking feedback from the mentors, applying that, and that cycle will go on till your proposal is almost at a perfect state, which is ready to be accepted even without blinking, for the org admins and the mentors, right? So frequent asked questions, we've already covered this. So you need to spend either 175 hours or 350 hours based on the project length. The stipend, the stipend scenario is not yet clear to me because they've not announced it on the website yet. But I feel they will extend the stipend or increase it if you work for 22 weeks. But then that's something that's not really something you should be concerned about. You just look at organizations and their projects. If you work less, you get less. So you can spend the rest of the time earning from somewhere else, of course, if that is what if the stipend is what you're concerned about. If you work for 22 weeks, great, well and good. Probably going to go in your next semester. By the time your next semester starts, you'll still be working on the project. But then because you're already almost done with your project, you'll be just finishing up writing a final document and things like that. If you're open to new open if you, I mean sorry if you're new to open source, if you're in first year, if you don't know programming at all, I would say now is the right time to start. We are still a lot of months away from GSoC even starting up for organizations. If you think this is something you can do, I would suggest open up that IDE, open up a few websites that can teach you programming and put it into practice. Books are not going to help you, believe me. You cannot, at least for me, I could not learn programming from books because you're just going to read code and then what? There's no way you can find out what goes wrong when you write something else. When you see a compile failure or a runtime error is when you know what should have been done and what you should not do in the future. So that is how I feel you learn programming languages. The technologies you can worry about when you shortlist the organizations you want to work with. Just make sure you are proficient, not even proficient. You know what you're doing. You should know how to write pseudocode at least. So if I give you a problem, you should know how to write pseudocode to solve that problem step by step. That is what a computer program is. You need to provide steps to solve a problem, right? So if as long as you know that, any programming language should be okay, right? So again, if you're in the first year, if you feel you are open to like contributing to something like this, do not wait for anything. Contribute, right? Start contributing. Put that proposal in. If you don't get selected, great. If you get selected, great. If you don't get selected, even better, because next time you're going to be doing something you like even more, because you'll have more knowledge, you will get more opportunity to explore more things, right? Yeah, so this is one of the things we discussed in the beginning, the evaluations. You need to pass 2 evaluations. After every evaluation, you will get some percentage of your stipend. And if like when the conclusion of when you reach the conclusion of the project, contributors must submit the code they've written for their project. So that's usually as part of a final document that you write, where you specify that these are the commits I have made, these are the code changes I've made, these are the projects I've contributed to, and this is the impact of the projects I've contributed to, and then it'll be available for anyone to see. And also an important advantage I forgot to mention here, because you guys are in the first and the second year, you wouldn't think much about this, but the more students who participate in international programs like Google Summer of Code, the better the name of the university also gets. And this is important because when you're an alumni, you should be proud when you say you're from Bennett University, right? And this is actually taking that a step forward. When people know Bennett University by the name, where the culture of programming is such that so many students every year are at least participating in GSoC, and there are people guiding each other, supporting each other for. But this is not a competition. Again, you need to support you and your friends to participate in GSoC, because again, the benefit is for all of us, and for the university as well, and you as an alumni as well, and me as well. So this is, I also have an advantage here, because if you people participate more in GSoC, I can proudly say that my juniors who are in the university have participated in GSoC, and that is a very good thing, because the university name will come up in the Google website. If let's say more than 10 people participate, the name is going to show up, because Bennett University is it might be the university that where more than 10 students participated. So when the name shows up, it's a very a symbiotic cycle where we are helping a lot of people by just participating based on your interests. So this is not a competition. If you were thinking this is a competition, by now all that should have been gone, right? Because we're just helping each other to do good. That's what GSoC is about. So this is like the basic timeline. This is what they announced on the Google website. There is no specific dates as of yet, but it's going to be like the same process. Organizations are going to apply, then students are going to apply, and then the community bonding will happen. The coding period will begin. That will be for 12 or 22 weeks, and then the successful students or the projects will be announced at the end of the period. That's usually in August somewhere for the longer projects, but it might be like 1 month before for the short ones. Yeah, so these are some useful links. I will send the proposal, share the presentation as well, so you can go through these later. Let me like quickly show you my latest proposal from 2019. Just a second. Yeah, so this is like the final report I had written for my 2019 GSoC project. I basically added support for a font format called WOFF2, which is used widely on the web nowadays, to a library called FreeType. So FreeType is basically used by Android and most of Linux to render fonts on the top of your screen. So I mean, for if you actually think about it, uh, you can just see stuff on your screen and you don't really think about how that happens, right? So FreeType is one of the libraries, especially on Android and Linux, that renders that font for you before it is shown on the screen. So the project was basically adding support for this web-based WOF2 font to FreeType. I have added the proposal link here as well, so you can go to go to the presentation, click on the link, and you'll be able to see my proposal. You can see that this is a Google Doc. This is going to have details about me, introduction, some background, the current state, the aim, what are the benefits to the community. So by the way, I followed the general proposal format in the Google contributor guide, because FreeType itself did not have a strict guideline for how the proposal should be made. So if that is not the case, I would suggest you always follow the Google's format, because then that will cover most of the things that you are supposed to do. So this is the detailed project description where you talk about in some technical detail about what you're going to do. And then let's skip over that. And then the important part is going to be your timeline. So you have to discuss what you're going to be doing in every week. So for example, here I started with week -2 to 0, which is the community bonding period. So I'll just interact with mentors, study the code base, things like that. And then you start with week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you talk about how the project is going to be managed. So it's on Git, it's on what website, you will create your own branch, will you be making merge requests which will be reviewed by your mentor, whatever. This will all be discussed with your mentor before you put it here, right? And then you can talk a little about your experience, your skill sets, and just make sure you add some references, because all of you cannot write this from your own knowledge, right? You have to refer to some documents, you have to refer to older proposals, you have to refer to the project website, the project repository. Make sure you add those references, because when a mentor looks through your document, they will look at the references, saying that okay, this guy has actually done some research that has gone in while making the proposal. So that gives you a positive a positive impression about your proposal. So that's my proposal. And yeah, so we are open to questions now. So do we have anything in the chat?
Yeah, we have some unanswered questions here. Rakha, would you like to take them on?
Yeah. Jayesh Kumar is asking, can you elaborate on
Yeah.
foreign internships? Like you said, do we have to fly away, or these are online internships?
Sorry, I think your voice broke up. Can you
Yeah, okay,
repeat?
I'll take it up. No
Yep.
worries. Sorry for that. Right. How can a second year student bag for an internship? Do we have to fly away, or these are like online internships? And how does GSoC help in this?
Okay, so I mean, discussion is mostly out of the scope of this call, because then that is, you'll have to talk about how you look for open positions, internships. But for large companies and most companies that are based out of Europe or US, you're going to be able to go to their website and look for internship opportunities, right? And you have to tune your resume such that the person who's evaluating your resume can look at it and say, okay, this is a person we can consider or spend time on interviewing for the internship position. You can apply sitting at home, of course. The interviews also mostly happen sitting at home. Um, After the COVID situation, I feel a lot of these internships could also be like work from home. But then if you do get an opportunity to go there and you're interested, I would suggest, of course, you do that, because then that's a different culture you're going to be able to experience.
Okay, we also have another question, and it says, is competitive programming all that it takes to excel in GSoC?
Um, Competitive programming helps. So anywhere, I mean, it could be it job interviews, be it your GSoC stuff. I would say lesser than job interviews, but of course, because if you practice competitive programming, you're going to be learning a lot of algorithms, right? So that makes you proficient in at least one language. That is an edge you have over other things, but you don't have to have competitive programming on your skill set or your resume to, apply for projects and succeed in them. I have personally I think many of my friends who have participated in GSoC have no competitive programming background. You could be a front end developer, right? Front end developer doesn't really need competitive programming skills to or even a back end developer who is more into um, developing software, architecting software instead of just writing algorithms and finishing them in as less time as possible. So it's not a mandate. Of course, if you're doing it, great, it's going to give you a huge advantage because you're proficient in that language. But otherwise, I don't think you really need to like force yourself to start competitive programming if you're not interested in it to be eligible or to have an edge in GSoC.
All right, we have Mayank Sharma who asked that I've just started with C++. What should I start parallelly with this so that I can apply for GSoC in 2022?
Um, Technology wise, again, it depends on the org you choose. So you go to the GSoC archive page, you look at organizations, select something you like. If you decided that you're going to work in C++ because that's a challenge you want to give yourself based on your, you want to track your learning progress by participating in a C++ GSoC project, look for C++ GSoC projects, talk to the org, and you know keep improving your skills side by side. And by the time you actually start working on the project, I'm sure you'll have enough C++ knowledge to get by, and you will actually learn a lot more when you actually start contributing to that code base. Because your normal C++ that you learn from courses, it's just going to be your basic void main function where you write something to add two numbers, divide, multiply, maybe slightly complicated to make some classes. But other than that, your real life practical use you will only understand when you start contributing to something, a large project usually that comes as open source organization.
Okay, we have Ansh Babbar who's asking he's asking, when you say work, does that mean the project you suggest to the open source project or work given by them?
Uh, the work as such is going to be what you put in your proposal. So if you look at this, there are very specific things detailed out that I'm going to do, right? There is an aim of the project. So this is just a very broad idea as to what you're going to be doing in the project. But if you scroll down, there is also a breakdown of what you're going to be doing every week. And usually if you stick to this, you should be good. Of course, there will be times where you're stuck somewhere, you need to take help from mentor, things get delayed by a week or two, that is fine. But work is what you yourself set out to do and you detailed in your proposal. But your previous contributions are something you have to find out and do for yourself, like browse the list of issues, find a bug, fix it yourself. All that is going to be like your own thing, right? You need to actually put some work in there. But once you your proposal is ready, you know what you're going to be doing throughout your project. It's just going to be the small nitty-gritty technicals that you might have to discuss with the mentor or the org or the community.
Right, there's one more question. Shubham Singh is asking, if we are not selected in the first try, then how many times we can apply?
There is no limit to that. If you're not selected, I think you can apply any number of times. Like, and now that it is open for everyone, even after you're a student, like even if after you graduated from the university, if GSoC is something you feel you should do to like upskill yourself, or just reconnect with open source, then you can just go ahead and do that. There is no limitation as such, and I feel there is no shame in doing that, because as long as you get to learn something even from the application process, it doesn't matter. You're learning something. That's what I feel. Yeah, if you get selected, you find an open source community that you like and start contributing. Just put out a mail. I would like to take up this issue. I would like to solve this bug. I would like to report a bug. That is also contribution. Like fixing a typo, like someone started. That is a very good way to start off, because you learn how the merge request or pull request process for that org is. And then you can start with slightly more complex projects like adding a feature, fixing a bug, things like that.
Hi Bhaiya, it's so nice to have you today.
Hi Adi.
Today you answered like almost every questions I got from my friends, even like Bhaiya answered all the questions that they have from the past, 2-3 months or from the time they are preparing for GSoC.
Right.
But I guess let's move to the end. And one last question from my side.
Mhm.
Honestly, I personally targeted GSoC last year.
Okay.
But what I felt the most problem is like I cannot decide to which organization I should go with, or to
Okay.
which organization I should focus on their areas, on their topics, on the to which topic I do study in thorough.
Okay. Okay. So what I would say is, initially there's going to be a lot of confusion. Even
Right.
while even while I was applying for the second year, I was just not just looking at free type. It just happens to be so that both of my years were spent contributing in free type. But then I was completely confused. Like from square one, I had to look at all organizations, look at what kind of projects interest me, if I will even be able to do this and things like that. So when you start off, I would say just make a rough list of whatever you feel it might interest you. Even if you're not reading about it, just put it in the list, put the link, and then you can start filtering, because it has to be a multi-step thing. You can't just look at the
Right.
list and like there's one pinpoint where, yeah, this is the one I want to do. If you reach that point, amazing, right? You already know what you want to do, but that's not the case for most of us. It's going to be a big list, and then you start filtering out, right? So if there is some technology that you thought that I'm never going to learn because I'm not interested in it at all, then you just remove it from the list. If there is some organization that you feel is not working the way you would like to, because there is some miscommunication, or you're not able to communicate at all, or they're not responsive enough to you, then of course that's out of the list. You can't really do anything about it. But this is how you need to go. And as you rearrange the list, I told you, you will finally get like 3, 4, or 5 organizations. Like by the time you reach a point where you're ready to make a proposal, just look at those, decide what you want to do, and go with it. Make a proposal, 1 or 2 max. 2 I wouldn't recommend again, because then you have to split your time between those. You have to split your attention and your intelligence and knowledge between those. But one, at least one, you give it your all. Even if you're submitting a second for a backup kind of a thing, that's fine. But one of the proposals, give it your all.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, if
Very
this
well
time
said.
I also had a question for Nikhil
Yeah,
here.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, about Bennett. It's about Bennett Open Source Society, basically. What inspired you to, come up with the idea?
Okay, so uh, an open source society was actually something I wanted to do, even before I participated in my first GSoC. That's because I like even before coming to college, I had programming experience, but not enough to be able to contribute to real world stuff. So and then when I discovered like the kind of influence open source software has all over the technology, sphere. Everything from Linux to Android to Java, all of this is open source. So you could say that the technology world runs on open source right now. Like,
Right.
so that is what I felt was an inspiration for me to start a society where we could support each other to not just GSoC, to contribute to open source in general, and appreciate what open source does for the technology that you and me use every day today.
Right.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm currently in the same situation where I have previous programming experience, but I have no clue how to apply it in open source.
Yeah, that this is a very good starting platform for that. GSoC doesn't expect you to have any open source knowledge beforehand. That is where they want you to talk to communities, talk to organizations, and get started. And when you get started, you that is where you have that edge, because they already know you, they already trust you. You can probably actually end up doing a project, and a project is a commitment. When there is a commitment, whether you lose interest or not, you will somehow go get through it. And that is going to help you in the future. So my last free type project ended in August 2019. Today, if you go to the free type repository, there are still commits from me. So
Mhm.
that is the kind of an effect the organizations want from the student or the contributor. They want you to continue contributing to them whether you're getting a stipend or not, because it's not just the stipend, it's the kind of experience you get, and it's the kind of as you go into more senior positions in the corporate, or if you go higher in academic studies, you always have this open source contribution in your background, which people will look at and say, okay, this person is reliable and this person knows what they're doing, because their software is currently being used in millions of devices. You'll almost get goosebumps, I'm not kidding. So when my commit actually got pulled into Google Chrome's code base, and now Google Chrome uses my code to render WAF2 fonts when you open a PDF on Google Chrome, that is a very gratifying feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely understand.
So that's where my motivation to contribute comes from. And that's where most of you will that's how most of you will look at it. If you complete your GSoC, it'll not become about stipend, it'll be more about contributing to the community that runs the whole world. Actually, you can't really do without technology nowadays, and so open source is running it somehow.
And Bhaiya, what do you think, like this time GSoC has opened the participation in GSoC for everyone, like 18 plus. So
Correct.
what do you think? It will increase the competition or it will decrease the chances of our, for us, we are, just a basic. We
Hmm.
know very basic. So what do you think about that?
I feel there's not going to be many changes as to how competitive each project is going to be, because see, people who are good enough to get selected for a GSoC project already have a job, or are doing something else, or are busy with something else, so they don't have time to contribute to GSoC.
Right.
And people who want to upskill themselves, and they want to learn programming, people who are out of college and they did something else, now they're probably started with web development, they're like, okay, I'll try out GSoC. They will not really be a competition to you, because there's going to be only a handful of those people.
Right. Right.
So I don't feel opening up for it up for everyone is going to like increase your competition. Rather, it's going to increase the kind of people you will interact with. So you will also probably see, along with you in the same org, there might be someone who, without any CS background or a college background, is participating, who got selected. So you're going to get to learn a lot of different ways of learning from them. So I feel it's a good thing. It's not don't think of it as a competitive, or something that is going to like decrease your chances as such. what
Yes.
Again, what you're going to focus is on participating, giving it your all, and then just hoping that the organization likes your proposal. That's all there is to it. Even if it doesn't, like I said, you're going to learn a lot.
True.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, some
I do
questions in the
have one.
chat box, I guess.
I
They're
do have one
asking,
question.
right, Prakhar?
Uh, what advice can you give to a beginner in coding? Like, how should he or she start to learn his first language or whatever it is, so that he can prepare for
Okay.
GSoC or any such exam?
Okay, so this is the more fundamental question, but I get I mean people ask this to me a lot, but and I always tell them don't start with a programming language. That's not a goal, right? I feel starting. I mean this is just my opinion. Starting a computer science course with a programming language is the mistake that people do. I mean even universities do this. You would have started your first semester with Python, right? The naming it Python is kind of misleading because you are actually learning how to instruct a computer to do things. Doing it in Python, C++ or Java doesn't really matter. You could write pseudocode and you could pay someone 10 rupees to code it out for you. That's not a skill. You might have seen this white hat junior stuff going around, right? They're teaching 5-year-olds how to code. That means as long as you have instructions, writing or converting it into a code that computer can read is not a very big deal.
Right.
Finding out, thinking about those instructions and optimizing how you get there is what programming is all about. Do that first, get your logic straight. So if I want to sort an array, why do I want to do it? Oh, in
True.
real life, why do you want to sort an array? That is what you find out, and then you look at how you sort an array optimally. You could start with bubble sort, great, n square, but you could do better. I mean, when I heard about merge sort, I was completely like amazed by sorting, how sorting could be done in less than n square, right? Because
Mhm.
I always thought it's going to be like you have to look at each element and then move it around, move it around, move it around, but then you could do it in n log n. So that is what you should look at. You
Right.
look at the algorithms, you look at how you instruct a computer, not which language you instruct the computer with. That can come later. Syntax, I can also search on Google and type it. You give me a new random language, a new random language which I never heard of before. You give me 15 minutes with it, I could write a merge sort code out of it. Even you could write it, but you have to know how to program the logic for that algorithm. So go behind that. Yes, of course, being proficient in a programming language is important for interviews and for, of course, GSoC as well, but that comes later. If you know the logic, syntax is going to it's just going to work out for you. That's what I can say. And with GSoC, there's no interview where you're going to sit down and the interviewer is like, you have to write this code in Java or C++. No, you have all the syntax, all the documentation in the world in front of you. You just have to find the right stuff to do and do it in the programming language that the organization uses or the
Right.
project uses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you have already taken so much time off your very busy schedule. I guess you can off the screen sharing of
Yeah.
yours and
Yeah. 1 second.
on your camera, so we have a last minute chit chat and have some snaps of our
Sure.
meeting.
Give me a minute though. I have my camera setup is very weird, so I need to like put it up on a stand kind
Yeah,
of a.
no worries. Till then, you can Pratyush and Prakhar, you can start your with the ending note.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that was a really great session. We answered a lot of questions, and you guys were also amazing. You know, you gave us a lot of questions to ask, and I think Nikhil Bhaiya also has a lot of commitments of his own, and so do we. So as much as we would, love to continue this session further, our time has come to a short.
So thanks a lot, Mr. Nikhil, for giving us your precious time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Great
And
to be here. I feel this is what like alumni, talking with alumni, and this is all about, right? We have a few people from the university who have done GSoC. You can also, if of course they are okay with it, you can also contact them, ask them questions. If you felt the way I explained was not good enough for you, if you have more questions, you can also reach out to
No,
them.
no, but yet that I will definitely interrupt. This was the session that I connected to. Like there were sessions in which I got disconnected, I feel bored. But in this session, honestly, not because we are hosted it, but because we enjoyed it. Like the way you answered, the way you speak, your speaking skills, your answering skills is all, perfect.
yeah,
Right.
and we have
Great to
also
hear that. And importantly, if at least 5 to 10 of you got inspired today, or thought of, okay, let's just try this out. It doesn't matter,
Definitely.
nothing's going to go wrong, there's no negatives out of it, you're just going to learn. If at least 10 of you got that out of the session today, I'm more than happy.
I'm definitely one of those 10, and I would love to connect with you over LinkedIn if that's
I mean,
possible.
I am just waiting to see Bennett's name in one of Google's blog posts as the highest participating university, right? And I would love to do as many sessions it requires to get there.
Damn true.
Definitely.
That's
That's
great.
amazing.
Okay. Yeah, and thanks to the wonderful audience. Your answer to learn is really great, and it really motivates us to keep conducting such webinars. Yeah.
So guys, thank you everyone for engaging in this session, keeping our motivation high, and one and only thank you, Nikhil Bhaiya, for coming with a busy schedule. I know this time after the in a job like HDR and HD at Commvault, this time is so busy and hectic for you. But you came for us only for our juniors. That's so appreciable for you, Bhaiya. Thank you so much.
As long as like our juniors are the ones who are going to like continue what the university is doing, and if you succeed, we all succeed. That's all I want to say. I will
Definitely.
share the presentation with Adi, and if you want, you can like forward it.
Sure, sure. I
Whatever
will. I
needs.
will.